Welcome to our video. My name is John Watts. I'm a foreclosure defense attorney in Alabama, and I hope that you'll find this video to be very helpful. I assume you're here because you live in Alabama, your house is facing foreclosure, and most certainly you have an actual foreclosure date. Now, whatever that may be 5 days from now or 45 days from now, but you have a date where your mortgage company says, on this date, we will sell your house. So I want to encourage you, watch this video, but do more than watch the video. Get this actual worksheet here that's on the screen. And we'll be going through this workbook or this worksheet. And if you are watching this on YouTube, you can go to foreclosuredvd.com where there should be a link below the video. Or if you're watching this on my website, you'll see a big red button that says something like, get the workbook. And if you'll fill that out, we'll email you the workbook in Word and in PDF version. So that way you can type on it or you can print it out, handwrite, whatever works best for you. Really encourage you to do that. Now, just a couple things before we get into the heart of the matter. First of all, this is not legal advice. I don't know your particular situation. I cannot give you legal advice. But this is general educational information to help you think through your options here. Because we're looking at how do we stop a foreclosure without having to file bankruptcy. Now, everybody in the world is telling you, file bankruptcy. You got to file bankruptcy. That's the only way you can stop foreclosure. Not true. So this is to help you think through that. And then if you want to talk with us directly, we'll be glad to speak directly to you and give you actual advice. Second of all, there's no guarantees. Nobody can promise you they can save your home. But I can tell you this. You do the work, particularly if you'll print out or type into this worksheet, that will really help you because you need to gain information and then take action. And that's everything we do is based on that, helping you understand your options and then encouraging you to take action. Now, third, if you just watch the video, I think it'll be helpful to you, but not nearly as helpful as filling out the workbook. Take action. Now, fourth and finally, when you finish this, you can send it to us if you would like us to chat with you. And we've got our fax number on there. You can email it to us. You can call us 205-879-2447. Contact us through this website. Whatever is easiest for you, we'll be glad to chat with you and help you any way we can. So let's get started. I think it's fair to ask this first question. Why should you listen to me? You know, there's lots of people out there saying things about foreclosures, and frankly, most of them have no idea what they're talking about. Or maybe it works in Florida, but not in Alabama, or Idaho, but not in Alabama. Why should you listen to me? I'm a lawyer in Alabama. I've represented, I can't tell you how many people over many, many years who have either been coming up on a foreclosure, or I don't recommend this, but even after a foreclosure, then we go back and undo that foreclosure. So if we can catch it before the foreclosure, then we stop the foreclosure. But even after a foreclosure, sometimes we can reverse the foreclosure. I train lawyers in this in Alabama and across the nation. And not just in kind of basic foreclosure defense, although it's very important, but some more advanced strategies. And the final thing I'll say is, look, I'm not charging you for this. I mean, it's costing you time, which is valuable, but you're not paying me a consultation fee. You're not having to drive down to my office. You can watch this on your phone, your computer, your TV, whatever's most convenient for you. So I encourage you, go through this. If it doesn't sound right, if it doesn't look right, if you go, I just don't like this, then stop watching it. But if this resonates with you, if you feel comfortable about this and confident in what we're saying, then I encourage you to keep watching this and keep working on filling out this workbook. All right, just real quickly, how bad is a foreclosure? Well, you can lose your home. You have credit reporting damage because now you'll have a foreclosure on there. It's on your permanent record. So when you're asked 2 years from now, 10 years from now, have you ever had a foreclosure? You have to say yes, to be honest. And you can also be sued for a deficiency judgment. That's where you owe $200. The house gets sold at the foreclosure sale for $150. Well, that difference is the deficiency, and they can sue you for that. They can sue you to kick you out of your house, whether or not there's a deficiency. And so all sorts of bad things can happen. We want to avoid those. So we have a 3-step process. Step number 1, what is your current location? And this is really from kind of a GPS perspective. Okay, if you want to get to Atlanta, what direction do you go? Well, if you're in Birmingham, you head east. If you're in Savannah, you go the opposite direction. You go west. What if you're way up in Chicago or New York? Well, then you need to go south. Or what if you're in Miami? You go north. So you have to figure out, where are you right now? And the most important thing to figure this out is, do you have an actual foreclosure date set? Now, if you don't, that's great. Okay, although this video is really focused on people who actually have a foreclosure date set. But if you do have it, which you probably do, write that in here. And again, if you don't have this workbook, pause the video right now, look below, click on the button, you give us your email address, we'll email it to you, Word and PDF version. Print it out, type it on another screen, whatever you need to do. But go ahead and put in the work. It's completely worth it. You're facing a really bad situation in foreclosure, and just trust me, this will help you with this. So what's the date of the foreclosure? Now, another question is, do you have a copy of your mortgage? Now, if you don't and you can't get it, don't worry. There's some people that kind of panic over that. Hey, we can help you get it, okay? But if you happen to have it, then just circle yes. And if you don't have it, circle no. And this will help keep you on track, so you know, I need to do this, or I need to do that, or no, I've got everything done. Now, the next thing is, how about the default letter? It's also called the notice of default. This is a letter you'll get that says you're in default. You have 30 days to fix it. If you don't fix it, then we're going to accelerate your loan. So instead of having 30 years to pay it, boom, you got to pay it all right now, and we'll foreclose. So here's the sequence: default or notice of default letter, acceleration letter, foreclosure. Okay. So do you have that letter? Now, you might have received that a few weeks ago. You might have received it a year ago. But just what's the last default letter that you have? If you don't have it, again, don't worry. We can help you get it. But if you do have it, then just circle yes over here. Now, this next one may seem a little bit odd. And I'll tell you why I put this in here. It's sort of obvious if you have $50,000 in equity, or we've had people with $500,000 worth of equity. You don't want to lose your house, because boom, you're going to lose all that money. But what if you have no equity? Or even if you owe this much, but your house is only worth this much, so you have negative equity. Why would you want to stay in your house? Well, from many years of doing this, we have found out sometimes it's the school district, maybe it's being next to family, maybe it's a wheelchair accessible house, whatever it might be. Write down your reasons and pause the video. Take whatever time you need. Write down the reasons. Why do you want to stay in your house? Why do you want to stop this foreclosure? And because the whole point of this is, how do we stop a foreclosure without filing bankruptcy? Because everybody tells you, you've got to file bankruptcy. You don't have to file bankruptcy. You can stop the foreclosure without filing bankruptcy. But write down why. Why do you not want the foreclosure? And then the next part of this will be, let's go to step number 2, which is the stages of foreclosure, to figure out exactly where we are in this. So if you look at the next page, 3 stages of foreclosure. And I'd recommend you circle whichever one you're at. So we have before, the actual, and after. So let me explain this. Before the foreclosure is where you probably are right now, because it is before the actual foreclosure date. Now, then the second stage is the actual foreclosure. So what happens at the courthouse steps when they sell your property? And then the third step is after that, when they sue you if you don't get out of your house. Okay? We're going to focus really on this section right here, before the foreclosure sale. Now, we have other videos about what do you do if it's the day of the foreclosure, or what happens after a foreclosure, but I'm going to keep this video focused on really the before part. Now, let's talk about how the foreclosures actually work. So we have non-judicial, which is how Alabama is, which means a judge is not involved in the actual foreclosure. Surprises a lot of people. They say, oh, no, a judge has to look at this before they can foreclose. That's not true. They go, yeah, but my cousin in Florida told me. Well, Florida's different. We're a non-judicial state. No judge is involved in it. People go, oh, well, the probate judge is. No, probate judge is not involved in this. So what happens is there's no lawsuit, there's no judge, and the foreclosure just happens, in essence, privately. Now, they advertise in the paper, and they stand outside the courthouse steps, but it's sort of like a repossession. No judge has looked at this and said it's okay to do. So it's very important to keep that in mind. Now, let's talk about the default letter. And this is really, really important. So if you have the default letter, get that handy for you so you can look at it. If you don't have it, again, we can help you get it. But this is where your mortgage company says you're in default. If you don't fix it, here's what we're going to do. We're going to accelerate the loan, and then we may sue you, or do the foreclosure sale. And then after the foreclosure sale, now they don't typically say this in the default letter, but then they'll sue you for ejectment. Okay, but let's focus on that default letter. It says what you did wrong. Probably they claim you didn't make payments. Maybe you haven't kept insurance. Maybe they claim you tried to sell the house or transfer ownership. Whatever it is, they're going to tell you how you're in default. And then they'll give you at least 30 days to fix it. And then they'll say, if you don't fix it, we're going to accelerate it. So here's what I want you to look at. In that letter, does it tell you you have the right to bring a court action to raise defenses to the default or the acceleration or the actual foreclosure sale? Because 99% of mortgages give you that right. If you have your mortgage handy, you might look at paragraph 22. Sometimes it's 17, but normally paragraph 22, it'll say something like remedies or acceleration, and it'll talk about a default letter, and then it'll talk about acceleration, and then it'll talk about advertising in a newspaper for 3 consecutive weeks in your county. But what I want you to focus on is, does it say you have the right to bring a court action to raise defenses? And just write in here, yes it does, or no it doesn't. You can write what it does say. Because sometimes they'll say you have the right to assert defenses in a foreclosure proceeding. That's really for places like Florida where they sue you to foreclose. Here you don't get sued to foreclose. So to say you can raise your defenses in the foreclosure proceeding, that's meaningless, and that's not what your mortgage says. So just write down here exactly what it says. Now, step number 3. How can you stop the foreclosure now without filing bankruptcy? So I feel like I need to address this. Does bankruptcy work? Because you are probably getting all sorts of letters from bankruptcy attorneys. If you do any searching for foreclosure online, you'll start getting these what are called retargeting ads, where bankruptcy firms will kind of follow you around. Hey, you ready to file bankruptcy? We can stop the foreclosure by filing bankruptcy. So does bankruptcy work? Usually it does, but what's the cost? Okay, so you file bankruptcy. If you do everything right and you haven't filed within a certain period of time, then you can stop the foreclosure. But then what? You still have to pay this. You still have all that back amount that you owe, and you have to pay your current payments. And if you do a Chapter 7, then you're facing a situation, do you reaffirm the debt or do you just surrender your house? So it's a temporary solution, but is it the permanent solution? I can tell you from experience, I get so many people come to me and they say, I filed bankruptcy to save my house, stop the foreclosure, and now I'm losing my house anyway, or I've already lost my house. So it's not a permanent solution, and you really need to think about the cost. So literally, what does it cost in terms of dollars? What's it worth to you to now have this bankruptcy on your permanent record? And it's going to be on your credit report for many, many years. And again, kind of like that question about have you ever filed or have you ever faced foreclosure? Have you ever filed bankruptcy? I mean, these are things you have to answer honestly. And so this is a life-changing event to file bankruptcy. So you have to consider that very carefully to see if it's worth it. Now, if it's your only option, then maybe you have to do it. But the truth of the matter is, and this is what's so sad, is many people think this is their only option. It's not their only option. Now, you've heard the story to a guy holding a hammer, everything looks like a nail. We go to a bankruptcy lawyer and you say, do I have any option to stop the foreclosure other than filing bankruptcy? They've got the hammer of bankruptcy, and they go, no, you have to file bankruptcy. That's your only option. I'm telling you, look at another option. So just write down what are your thoughts about the cost. Now, another option is you can hope your mortgage company does the right thing. Yeah, I mean, I put that on there because literally some people believe this. They go, I just don't believe Wells Fargo or Ocwen or Ditech or NationStar, or I guess now it's Mr. Cooper. It's the goofiest name I've ever heard. But anyway, I just know they're going to take care of me. They would never foreclose on me. Well, if you truly believe that and you're absolutely confident, hey, then go with that. I think that's very naive. I don't think that your mortgage company will do the right thing, but ultimately that's your decision. you could reinstate the loan. That'll be mentioned in your default letter. And this is basically you're $24,000 behind, and they say you can pay us the $24,000, kind of get caught back up, and we'll stop the foreclosure. Hey, that's great. So you've got to take care of that back amount. How much do you owe? Do you have the ability to do that? I would just circle yes. Hey, if you do, that's wonderful. Doesn't mean you should necessarily do it, but it's great to have that option. Maybe you have the money, or a relative will give you the money, or you can pull it from a 401k, whatever it may be. That's wonderful to know you have that option. But for most people, the answer is no. They say, look, I don't have 10 or 20 or 30 or $40,000 to reinstate. So here's what is often the very best option. That is to sue your mortgage company. Have the court, have a judge hear your defenses. So it's not non-judicial. Now we're in front of a judge, we're in front of a court, and that court's looking at, was the default done correctly? Was acceleration done properly? Do they have the right to foreclose? Do you have defenses to this? And I won't go through all the reasons, but there are so many reasons, so many defenses that you could have. Maybe you weren't behind. Maybe they've done what's called dual tracking on, you're trying to do what's called loss mitigation to save your house. And so you're doing that, but then they're also, it's kind of like they have this other train going toward foreclosure. All sorts of federal and state rules that would say to the mortgage company, you have no right to foreclose. I'll give you an example here. Look at your mortgage. Find that paragraph 22. Okay, usually it's 22, maybe 17, but that's the one that talks about acceleration, foreclosures, advertising, newspaper, and default letters. So right on there, what number is it? Does it say you have the right to bring a court action? If it does, say yes. 99% of the time it does. Now, if it says that, now look at that default letter. And hopefully you wrote this on the previous page. What is your default letter? Compare those two. Because I can tell you this, if your mortgage says you have the right to bring court action and your default letter says you don't, it's a defective default letter. And remember what we talked about. You have the default letter, and then let me illustrate it this way. Default letter, and then what's built on that foundation is acceleration. And then what's built on the acceleration is a foreclosure sale. Well, if the default letter is no good and that gets pulled away, everything collapses. So it's critical that you look at that. That could be a wonderful defense for you. All right, now, here's the point here, is your mortgage gives you the right to have a judge look at this. Maybe you were never in default. Maybe it's a bogus default letter. Maybe they haven't done loss mitigation correctly. Any number of reasons why there is no right to foreclose. Maybe this mortgage company never had the right to foreclose. They're not even the right party to foreclose. You now know that you have the right to bring the right lawsuit in the right court at the right time with the right claims. And that can stop the foreclosure. And so, just right on here, how does that make you feel? For most people, that's very empowering to know, okay, it's not just I have to sit here and just wait. I get to take some action. I get to do something about this. Now, what I have here is, this is a secret. Okay, now, to say it's a secret is kind of interesting because it's there in your mortgage, but oftentimes the mortgage companies they'll alter that default letter to try to distract you from knowing you have this right. Or they don't tell you about this. They'll list all these things. They'll say, oh, you can do loan modification, principal reduction, forbearance, deed in lieu of foreclosure, short sale, you can file bankruptcy. Somehow they never mention, oh, by the way, you can sue us and have a judge decide if we've done everything properly. So why don't they tell you about it? Well, it would ramp up their cost. It sure would slow down a foreclosure because right now they can go to the courthouse, stand outside the front steps, boom, your house is sold. But if a judge is looking at it, judge may have a hearing. You can send what's called discovery or questions or requests for documents to your mortgage company, and it slows it down. So they don't like this. And once they can get that foreclosure to happen, you're in a very weak position. So here's your foreclosure right here. Okay. Before the foreclosure, you have a lot of options. 1 second after the foreclosure, almost all those options go away. So if they can sort of lull you into this or make you believe you have no option to sue them, and they can get you to that foreclosure and get you 1 second after the foreclosure, you've lost a whole bunch of your rights. So you're much more powerful and in a much stronger position if you can sue before the foreclosure and stop that foreclosure. Okay, what do you do right now? I'll give you two tests here. Scale of 1 to 10, so 1 is not very important, 10 is super important here. How important is it that you stop the foreclosure? Now look, some people go, I don't like this house, or I just figured out I have termites, or I'm wanting to leave the house anyway. I don't care about a foreclosure. Okay, well then maybe that's a 1 or 2 or 3. But for most people, if they're still watching this video, I assume you're in this group, it's really important to you to stop the foreclosure. But just go ahead and figure out on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being not important, 10 being vitally important, how important is this to stop the foreclosure? Now another scale, another test is, how important is it that this be handled correctly? And here's what I'm getting at. Some people say, I really want to stop the foreclosure, but I tell you what, I'm going to do it on my own. Or I'm going to hire some company that's not even, they don't have a licensed lawyer in Alabama, but they'll kind of give me some advice on the side. I don't recommend that. I think that's a terrible idea. But some people go, well, I'll just do this on my own. And if it gets handled correctly, great. If it doesn't, no big deal. Other people say, no, look, this is my home. This is my children, where they go to school. This is my life. It may be my marriage. I may have a lot of money in this house. I want this handled correctly. Well, this will guide you then on what you do next. So you're at a fork in the road, two choices. You can do this on your own, and there certainly have been people that have done it on their own. And you can do it kind of through trial and error. Or you can say, I want somebody to guide me through this process. I want an advocate, somebody that's on my side fighting. And that's what you have to decide is, which way do you want to go? You want to do the trial and error? You want a guide? And why? And look, there's no right or wrong answer. What you decide may be completely different than your next door neighbor or your brother-in-law across town. You've got to decide what's best for you. And if you do this on your own, let me give you some advice. You've got to study the law very carefully. That's Alabama foreclosure law. So I'm not saying ignore every other place, but you really have to focus in. What does Alabama say? Idaho law, Florida foreclosure law, totally different. What does Alabama law say? What does the Alabama Supreme Court, the Court of Civil Appeals, what do they say about the law? And also federal law. There's a law called RESPA, Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act, Truth in Lending Act, sometimes called TILA, T-I-L-A, the FDCPA, Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. These are all federal laws that can impact whether or not they can foreclose on you. So spend some time studying those. And then, part of your job is to find that information, to sort it out, say, this is no good, but this is good, solid information. And then you've got to figure out what you need to learn and how quickly. And then you've got to take massive action. I mean, it doesn't matter if you are the smartest person in the world on foreclosures. If you don't take action, nothing happens. Now, if you want us to guide you in this process, then reach out to us. Probably the easiest way is just call us, 205-879-2447. Ask for Randy. She's my paralegal in charge of foreclosures. I've got my email address on here, john@wattsherring.com, randykerb@gmail.com, or go to contactjohnwatts.com. That'll take you immediately to a contact page. And look, here's how we do it. If you want to meet in person, we can do that. But for most people, because we represent folks all over the state, we do it by phone. Let's figure out, when's your foreclosure? Do you want to stay in your house? What does your mortgage say? What does your default letter say? What's the reason that you're in this situation? If you don't have your mortgage, don't have your default letter, we can help you get that. And then we help you see your options. For some people who say, look, it doesn't make sense to hire us. I think you should not do anything, or you should look at bankruptcy or do something else. But for a lot of people, we say, if you really want to stop the foreclosure, we can help you do that. And then we'll say, here's what's involved, here's your time commitment, here's the money commitment, here's what it will cost. Now, what do you want to do? And we don't do this in a high pressure way. We present the information to you. If you say, I don't want to do it, that's fine. If you say, hey, I want to do it, perfect. We'll be glad to help you. So I want to congratulate you, because I don't know how long this video has been going, but you've stuck with me, and so I appreciate you doing that. Build on this momentum. Okay, go to the next page, and there's some information you can fill out. You can also, in this open area here, write down any thoughts, any questions, hey, I need to figure this out, or I need to ask John this question, or I need to find this document. And I think that'll really help you. We put this on here, this personal information sheet, just to kind of put all your information in one area. So obviously your name, your address, what's your current mortgage company, when did you start dealing with it? It might have been 1 month ago, it might have been 5 years ago. That can help us as to whether this law applies or that law applies. What's the date of the foreclosure that they're threatening you? They're saying, hey, by November 1st, we're going to foreclose, or January 7th, or December 15th, whatever it is. Write that down. Have I gathered up all my letters, my statements? In other words, anything from the mortgage company or from a foreclosure lawyer. If you have, great. You can write that down. Yes, I have it, or no, I haven't. And then that can be a project for you. Now, don't delay either researching this on your own or getting with us if you want somebody to guide you through this process. Again, because we can help you get that information. And then I want to leave you sort of next to last thing with this. What questions or thoughts? And there's this old expression, the faintest ink is better than the strongest memory, okay? So write it down. What questions, comments, thoughts, concerns, whatever you have. And then I want to leave you with this little story. It may seem like an odd story, but I think at the end that you'll appreciate this. I heard this a number of years ago. I found it very useful. So there's this old man in the woods, and he's a very wise man. Then there's this young guy, and he goes, you know what? I'm going to show that old man is not so wise. He's kind of a fool. He goes, here's what I'm going to do. He's talking to his friends. He says, I'm going to capture a bird. And I'm going to take that bird to the old man and say, old man, what's in my hand? And he's a pretty smart guy. He'll say, it looks like you have a bird. And I'll say, old man, is it alive or is it dead? And if the old man says it's dead, then I'll do this. And the bird will fly off. See, he's a fool. But if the old man says the bird is alive, I'll crush it and crush it and crush it and open my hands, and the bird will be dead. And his friends thought that was a great idea. So he goes and captures a bird. He goes up to the old man and says, old man, what's in my hand? And the old man says, you have a bird. He says, old man, is it alive or is it dead? And with sadness in the old man's eyes, he looked at him and he said, my son, the bird is in your hands. And so too for all of us, when we gain information, we've got to decide, what will we do? Will we act on that or will we not act on it? You now have the power. You have the choice. You have the decision to make. What will you do? Whatever decision you make, I wish you only the best. If we can help you in any way, pick up the phone and call us. 205-879-2447. 205-879-2447. Ask for Randy. She's our paralegal. She'll be kind of your first point of contact, and then we'll all get together on this, and we'll be glad to help you any way that we can. So I appreciate you watching this video and hope it was helpful to you, and wish you only the best. Take care. Bye-bye.